Roman decadence has always been a controversial topic among historians and literary movements alike, whether they lived during antiquity or took inspiration from it in a later era. We will explain the connection between Roman decadence as seen through the lens of one of the most prominent historians of the time, and the decadent movement, a mostly literary and artistic movement from the 19th century Europe, who took inspiration from the Romans. The historian in question was Sallust, who lived in the late Roman Republic era of the 1st century BC. He wrote about the age of decadence and the moral decay the Republic had fallen into at the time, tracing it and the downfall of virtue back to the end of the Metus Hostiliis, the fall of Carthage in 146 BC. Sallust states that the worth of a man is derived from his virtue and morals. According to his Stoic way of thinking, battle was the most direct way to gain and prove that virtue, as it taught discipline and the ideals of the Roman nation. Within this logic, the stronger the foe, the greater the virtue developed in conquering them. So when Rome vanquished its last worthy opponent, its morals were most at risk. As the focus on conquest fell away with Carthage, Roman men became too focused on other pleasures. Sallust also highlights Sulla's return to Rome after his campaign in Asia as important to the downfall of Roman virtue. Asia became to be synonymous with loose morals, extreme luxury, and femininity, as the ease of life and abundance of resources and riches there weakened the inhabitants. It made them lazier and more effeminate, thus conquering them taught no virtue. In the time before the fall of Carthage, the youth focused on fighting for the Republic, but after lost that focus to pleasure and luxury. This was accompanied by a loss of virtue and decline in morals, most easily seen in their version of what was considered masculine or feminine. Because of the link between femininity and luxury, this change led to decadence. For Sallust, the lack of military achievement and the subsequent Asian influence which led to Roman youth becoming more effeminate and focusing on luxury over virtue formed the biggest problem for the Republic. It had become too decadent.
In the latter half of the 19th century, a group of acquainted artists discontent with their society's rapid change banded together against this development. Among these individuals were the likes of Charles Baudelaire and Joris Galvizman. They were based in Paris, although they quickly spread to other cities such as London and Berlin, and called themselves the Decadent movement. They drew inspiration from and comparison with Rome, specifically the Republican era and its end, adopting a modified definition of Roman decadence as their ideology. It was their belief that decadence emerged when parts of a whole individuated, causing the whole to disintegrate. This, in turn, occurred when exaggerated focus was placed on individual life due to acquiring greater riches and luxury. They desired a new art form that could capture these ideologies. They wanted to capture the changing and declining world and did so by capturing the vulgar and the obscene. Additionally, it needed to be artificial, preventing the intermingling of art and life, as this was seen as a flaw in the art of their time. They desired art for art's sake instead. This new form of art was the art of the decadence. The decadents saw this decline of the now as necessary for new life and a new world to emerge. Through decadence, art could transcend itself into something new and better. And now, onto the next speaker, who will talk about the meaning of decadence.
Thank you. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, the British English definition of decadence is low moral standards in behavior, and the American English one is a state of low standards in a society, social decay. The two definitions are different in what they focus on. The British one is more generalized, while the American one focuses on society, both of which differ from the Roman definition, as I'll explain later. It is also good to look at where a word comes from when trying to find out what it means. The etymology of decadence is relatively simple. The modern-day word is derived from the Latin word decadere. Decadere itself is a compound of the Latin prefix de and verb cadere, which mean down and to fall, respectively. You would then think that the complete word would simply mean downfall. However, the translation normally used is to decay. As you can see, the literal meaning has become archaic in use. Let's now put the different definitions of decadence beside each other. Firstly, the Roman view can be summarized as a degeneration of Roman virtue accompanied by an increasing desire for luxury, especially when it comes to the elite. The decadent movement views decadence as an increase in individuality as well as an artistic expression of separation from the constantly changing world. And then the modern meaning. Decadence is a subjective term used to morally judge different aspects of society, which is associated with an unwillingness to develop along with it. Now that I've clarified this, I'll cede the floor to the next speaker so he can start his talk on the comparison between the different decadences.
Thank you. I will now be comparing Roman decadence and decadence as perceived by the decadent movement. The view of the Romans and the movement on decadence is very similar, although key aspects are different because of when they lived. For example, the Romans believed that decadence was caused by luxury, which was associated with greed and women. To the decadents, the cause was putting a focus on the individual in terms of personal well-being and wealth. To them, this showed itself in their view of women as seducers and aristocrats as decadent. The Romans paid attention to different facets, namely the Roman youth's interest in pleasure and luxury over traditional virtues and the inversion of masculine and feminine traits. They responded to this in different ways. The Romans wrote critical texts, where the movement turned their focus to their new art form. Hence, the Romans saw it as an invasive, foreign influence from the East that opposed their virtues. In contrast, the movement was afraid of the change caused by decadence as they sought to preserve their old traditions, but believed that decline was necessary for the emergence of a new way of life. In conclusion, the term decadence has retained its core meaning through the years and has been generalized over time, while the specific bounds of the term adapted to the society's views at the time.